Any moving, any shaking? I guess let's dive right in.
There is a little bit of movement here, and we'll start with the first two teams out. And I mean, it records matter, on the field matters. But I'm telling you, I've watched this team the last couple of weeks. So I've got the Oregon Ducks sitting there at my 6B, and I had to knock Florida State out. They're sitting there at my 6A, if you will. Florida State didn't play all that well against Pitt. I know I'm with a bunch of Yinzers, but listen, the Pink Panthers haven't been exactly ideal this year.
None of us care about
7. Yeah,
None of us care. No one in the city does either.
Yeah, well, it's apparently a lot of yellow seats at those games.
Yeah.
Everybody's dressed like yellow. You know, Cincinnati Bengals did the black and the orange. Pitt, everybody dressed like a seat. Come out to the game.
It'll be fun.
That's what happens. Anyways, go ahead. They beat us, though, I guess, in junior year. So, way to go. Way to go, Pitt.
Sorry for dredging that up, Pat. I mean, some of those.
No, they do. They break hearts. That's why they potentially could have done that to Florida State. Yeah. That is something they could have pulled off.
Well, they kept that thing close. It was 10-7 at halftime, and Florida State didn't really play all that well. And listen, Oregon, all they've done is just run roughshod after losing in that tight game to Washington. They smacked Cal. And so I'm sitting there like, if I could jump them over top of Florida State, I probably would. So I've got those two guys sitting as my first two out. So that means number 4 sliding in after a big victory against USC in a game which there was really minimal defense played. I've got the Washington Huskies sitting there.
Hey,
yeah, they're sliding in. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. didn't have the best statistical game, gentlemen, but I go back. There's a third down where he's rolling to the side and throws a dart down the sideline into the end zone for a touchdown. I mean, the guy's as skilled as they come, and if you're going to try to get in a scoring match with him, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to beat him.
Yeah, Rome Odunze, also a dog. Jalen Polk is a freak show. I mean, we got a chance to watch that game live, obviously, with the college football red zone thing we did on Saturday, which was so sweet. Just need to lose about 16 of the 18 commercials.
That's right.
16 out of the 18 of them. If we're able to do that, I think it'd be a much better evening, but had a blast doing it. And the reason why is because that Washington USC game was so damn electrifying. This means that you're giving a lot of credit to USC, though, as well, right? You think that this was a big win because they beat USC?
Because USC can score. I mean, you guys watched out there. You know, Caleb Williams, he had a fumble. He had some mistakes, but listen, this guy's tremendous. They've got an elite offense. They just can't stop anybody, and that's eventually what got them. And so, listen, they USC, oh, goodness, I think they're taking on Oregon this week, so that should be a nice matchup. We'll see what goes on there. And then Washington takes on Utah, so it'll be interesting. You got one team that scores a lot, one team that plays a lot of defense and can score, and then Washington obviously taking on Utah. Defensive stalwarts, try to slow the game down. And this is going to be a little bit of a styles makes fight matchup this week. So super excited for that one as well. Sitting there at number 3, slid them down a little bit. Whoa. They looked okay. It's more really about the team at number 2. But I've got the Michigan Wolverines sitting at 3 this week.
Oh, they were number 2 last week. There's a little bit of movement down from 2 to 3. Are they on their way out because of Connor Stallions?
Uh-oh.
Well, it's not that. I mean, they beat up Purdue pretty good. It's a function of just watching the game. Like, they're not running the ball as effectively as they did last year. Now, that can all change. You sit there and look at it, you know, I believe they had, 110 rushing yards, which this is a team that used to roll up 200 easy all the time. You have Blake Corum, you have Donovan Edwards, those guys ripping off long runs, doing it out of the backfield, not quite as productive as this year. And then they also gave up 125 yards on the ground to Purdue. And that's not besmirching Purdue, but they haven't been the best rushing team. And we'll get a nice taste this week, gentlemen, because heading over to Pennsylvania, you will see the Michigan Wolverines taking on the Nittany Lions this week, big noon kick for Fox. So that's going to be a heck of a ball game right there, and we'll see how that thing shakes out.
Huge game, especially with all the allegations and everything that's kind of cooking. General Bob Carpenter, obviously you're on top of all the college football news. Were you a part of the crew at Ohio State alongside Ryan Day, who had to answer these questions, and others that said, you know what? I seen this little sawed-off prick sitting in the stands recording everything with these glasses as if he was old-school internet porn guy from the POV trying to steal this stuff. Where do you stand right now as an Ohio State guy, clearly? Not only you live in Columbus, you have a talk show in Columbus. and the team you've had at number one since before the year was probably not supposed to be there before the year, but you've been there. But how do you feel about all of the revelations that have taken place? Now it's being said by Pat Forty that all the other Big Ten schools were colluding to get Michigan signals. So how do you feel about it, and what do you think inevitably happens? And will you judge them on the field because of all this type of stuff that we're learning?
I'm going to judge them the same way I have all year, once this stuff leaked out. So, if they beat Penn State, you know what, good job to them. Obviously I think they have Maryland and then Ohio State. So they've got a tough 3-game stretch. We'll see how that shakes out. As far as kind of where everything is, it's really pretty amazing. Like, there's things that are against the rules. I didn't make them, but they're out there, and you're not allowed to do advanced scouting. You're not allowed to record signals. They have people doing both. Like, from what I've been told, it's pretty lockstep that there's documented video evidence of all of these things occurring. And I had a friend of mine who's a Michigan fan. You play with the Lions, and in the Midwest, you get some Michigan fans that are friends. And one of the guys wouldn't come off the fact that he said, well, I don't know if it's really Connor Stalions in the seats. He was maybe paying a third party. So is that still illegal? I'm like, dude, I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, just because are we in the champagne room? There's no touching. There's touching. Like, we really gonna split hairs on what we're really looking at here. Like, I mean, there was just a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. And then they tried to kind of dump it out there. Well, Ryan Day hired a PI or his brother, which I guess is found out not to be true. And I'm like, listen, man, if your wife has video of you walking out of a hotel room with a hooker, you don't sit there and complain where the video came from. It's more about the fact if you're trying to defend yourself about walking out of there.
Hey, sounds like a situation you should never try to find yourself in. I couldn't even fathom trying to have that conversation. But what you're saying is, from what you're hearing, and I guess we're kind of hearing this as well, because the Big Ten has come out and said that they are looking into it, and they've given allegedly a list of things that Michigan has done wrong and the evidence that they have. And Michigan has until tomorrow, end of day, to respond, and then maybe the Big Ten will punish Michigan even before this weekend. A lot of alleged. Feels like it's all getting so muddied right now. Like the stories. Like, there was a PI, there's Elon Musk, there's CIA, there's this. It's starting to get to a point where it's almost absurd. Like last night when this Michigan news dropped about the other Big Ten teams colluding about signs, there's people saying well, and then Pete had this news a week. It's like, you think Pete Thamel would hold that news while he's in the middle of a Pulitzer run right now? No way. No chance. It's like, but every single day there's more shit getting thrown out there. I wonder what's real. I wonder what's not. And I wonder if we'll ever know. I wonder if we'll ever know.
The coaches, you heard Ryan Walters of Purdue come out and say last week, he's like, these aren't thoughts. These are actions. This is reality. This is what happened. So they'll know. They dumped all the allegations on Michigan. So instead of saying, well, other people are doing something that's legal, we're all coaches. If you're friends, you talk. And I think the rest of the coaches in the Big Ten have known this was going on. So they may be helping each other, probably, but I don't think there was any recording of stuff or sending it around, at least not to my knowledge. So I'm curious where Tony Petitti goes with this. It's his first year as Big Ten commissioner. So, man, kudos to you to try to figure out a ruling. Stephen
A. Smith said this morning down at Winston-Salem State University, formerly Slater Industrial Academy. That's in 1892.
No big deal.
He said, ban them. Ban them from the college football playoff. I was like, damn, I had not heard somebody just say that as open. But then he started listing off the reasons. It's like, if they've cheated to get to this point, why are they taking another school's position? It's like, well, I think they're executing very well. They're playing very good. Did the kids know that Connor Stallion was wearing a hat on Central Michigan? And then Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp said, did the kids on the other team that didn't cheat, do they not deserve a spot in college football playoff over Michigan? I'm like, oh, I guess we could grandstand all day on who deserves what. I'll be excited to see what the Big Ten does. That would have to be an NCAA ruling, though, right, to ban college football playoff, and the NCAA does nothing fast.
Well, they could ban them from the Big Ten championship game, which then you'd have a hard time getting in if you're not the Big Ten champ, which I'm going to be honest, guys, I'm going to say it right. I hope that does not happen.
We agree.
Because I would like to see Ohio State. I think everybody would like to see Ohio State or Penn State beat them over the next couple of weeks and change that. But I'm not a fan of banning them from the Big Ten championship game. Figure out other penalties. If it's hardball related, I don't know. But I'm not a fan of that right now. So I just want to make that abundantly clear, because we're already in the middle of this, dude. You can't just stop the season right now.
Yeah, and some of the seniors, like this is their last.
Come on.
But also, hey, other schools too. What about the kids at Michigan State? that had to learn that there was somebody on the other sideline of Central Michigan that was documenting their every move. So all their work was for naught, because they were going to lose anyways. What about those kids? I love the whataboutism about it all, but I will say, what about how good they are as a football team?
Yeah.
You know, and you dropped them a little bit because Blake Corum's not running as many yards. He's still scoring touchdowns, and JJ's still throwing it all over the place. Big one in Penn State, though. Let's move to number 2. Congrats to us, by the way, breaking that all down in a super professional, non-biased manner.
Had to do it.
2 Ohio State people on the screen. I feel like we're pretty non-biased there. Good for us.
Yeah,
this is journalism.
That was great.
This is journalism.
Jay. We were non-biased.
Tiny. That's a tiny J, man. That's a subscript J, as small as you can get, guys. I mean, I'm not going to claim myself a journalist by any stretch.
Well, nobody's claiming us as journalists, but we are on JSPN. So that is what we're on, Journalism Sports Network. So that is exactly what we are. Anyways, go ahead, Bob.
All right, number 2, after a nice, impressive win over Mizzou, who I think is a little better than what people were giving him credit for. You got the Georgia Bulldogs. Carson Beck looks pretty good. He's been playing a clean game. You know, the one thing with Georgia this year, like, you remember the past 2 years, Pat, they had a smothering and suffocating defense. And I'm watching Mizzou, who I know doesn't recruit at quite the same level. I know they've been winning games, and Schrader's a good runner, and they've got some talent. But, man, they rolled up 151 yards on them on the ground, which you would have never seen that a couple years ago from a Georgia team.
So you're thinking maybe there's a weakness down there.
Well, an Ole Miss this week, and Lane Kiffin, they talk about Lane. He is kind of a sneaky visor guy. Like, he's offensive coordinator visor guy, which they need visors, Pat, because their brains are so big. You have to let them breathe in there. So most of the time, those guys like to throw the ball. But Lane, however, I mean, he wants to get that thing on the ground and pound it. So we'll see what that happens. Ole Miss, I think, a 10-point dog, but I think that game could be a little closer.
Quinshawn Judkins, I believe, is the name of the running back down there at Ole Miss. And they have transfer Dart. No, Jackson Dart is quarterback, Dart, I believe, down there. And Lane Kiffin, 6 a.m. hot yoga now.
That's right.
It's a whole different Lane Kiffin. This might be the best Lane Kiffin that's ever been activated. Excited to get down to Athens for College Game Day in our show, which will be live on Friday. And who's at number 1, General Bob Carpenter?
Well, we've got the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Way to go, Ohio State.
Henderson. Hey, when he's come back, Travion's had 200-plus total yards in the last 2 games. You see how fast and explosive he looks. He's a cheat code back there for Kyle McCord. Talk about poor quarterback play in the NFL. When you can dump a check down to a guy who takes it 65 yards, that's not the worst thing in the world. And Marvin still had 2 touchdowns. And, hell, they had a defensive score. So they've been getting it done in a multitude of ways. So excited and really can't wait for these next 3 weeks with the college football playoffs. I got two gimmicks for you this week.
Yes.
And this one, I was burying Clemson last week. I thought they were done, Pat. You know, the reign is over. They're going to be 4-5. Notre Dame was going to do to them what they did last year. I had to give it to my guy, man. He's getting the Stratton Oakmont Jordan Beefert freaking award. Okay, I'm not leaving. Buy stock right now in the Clemson Tigers.
Okay.
Yelling, this is as low as we're going to be, man. So good for him.
Well, I appreciate the fact that Dabo, too, heard all, you know, it wasn't just Tyler.
No.
It wasn't just Tyler. It was everybody. He heard, and they get a massive, massive win and bounce back. You think Cade Klubnik is going to be able to continue the run here? You think Jordan Belfort's going to go from penny stocks and then move right into the next thing that he's selling Steve Madden shoes? You think he's going to be able to do that, Bob Carpenter?
Well, we'll see if he can get all the way there. But if they can run the ball like they did, they've got a shot. Because that's the problem, man. They haven't been able to run the ball, and they did it without Will Shipley in that game. So kudos to them. I mean, Dabo, he rallied them up, and they played really, really good. Yeah. And then
he ran down that hill.
He did.
He ran down that hill, didn't he?
In the khakis.
Dabo's been doing the conditioning test, I think, with his team for the last 40 years. My man likes to leg it out, and he runs hard.
Like you're saying. Like you're saying.
Well, I can only hope to be in as good a shape as Dabo. And then I got one more for you.
I think you're in
They've been playing Bedlam since before both schools were even in a state. It was the Oklahoma Territory. They've been playing this thing for well over 100 years. And Oklahoma has dominated. But sometimes all you need in life is a walk-off. You call bank? Well, my man, the mullet master, he called game. And Mike Gundy and the Oklahoma State Cowboys getting it done. They may have had a little bit of help from the official holding his flag there at the end on a PI.
Wizard, yeah.
They got it.
What?
Is that Chris Broussard?
I think it is.
We don't need to go there. We don't need to put Chris Broussard in your pocket right now.
So what?
How did Paul Pierce get in a Wizards jersey?
Yeah. What happened here? What happened?
Oh, okay. So Paul Pierce, he hit a buzzer beater when he was playing for the Wizards, and it was Bank. And they asked him, "Did you call Bank?" And
he said, "No, I called game."
Bingo.
Okay, that's why the quote.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
He pulled it all together. Listen, it was good research there, and I was curious if he was going to have the Wizards jersey on because no one remembers Paul Pierce with the Wizards.
Nope.
Kind of like Michael Jordan. You slide it in at the end.
I was excited to see. Well, there's a lot of things like that. But I thought that was a potential completely blown graphic.
Yeah, me too.
And I was excited to see how we were getting there. Did you see that video of him holding that trophy up over his head afterwards when he was talking to the team? And that thing's going to live there forever. A little pettiness between those two because they could certainly continue to schedule that.
Yeah.
You know, other teams have been able to do that have left conferences, but instead Oklahoma State says, good riddance, it's our trophy forever. I appreciate the hell out of you, General. Have a great day, pal.